Hey everybody, this is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous good-looking friends. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to go back in time to when no one knew the turmoil Meghan was causing behind the palace walls. So in early 2020, when lockdown was just beginning in New York, I found myself passing the time by reading certain blogs on Tumblr. Part of it was for distraction, as I had been going under a tremendous amount of stress from the horrendous abuse I was subjected to at work. And also, Megxit had just happened, and it started to make some waves over here in the United States. One of those Tumblr bloggers that I found was called House of Brat. So they began posting an anonymous source called London Scoop, who was originally found on the I Am Still Skippy Tumblr blog, which got taken down. Now, I'm not sure if Skippy version 20 is the same user as I Am Still Skippy. However, in this post, it does explain who London Scoop is. And here they write, "This is London Scoop. She provided information before the wedding and a small amount after. The information she provided them is at this time more relevant to understanding the fact the British royal family have been in a situation and therefore why they do what they do." I clean the posts up a bit and enlarge as much as I can. The order doesn't matter. Again, it's the information that is important. Enjoy. I ask you, please not remove and reblog as your own. Feel free to reblog, of course. London Scoop came from I Am Still Skippy, in order not to create confusion. This was Skippy's Anon, so anonymous poster. She has been gone for a while now. I don't want to give the impression she is back. Thank you for understanding. I'm sure many of you who have been a part of this saga from the beginning are aware of these posts, but I think there are many that are not aware of these posts and thought it would be an interesting topic to cover. So grab something to drink and a yummy little snack. Get comfortable. You don't want to skip this video. Before I forget, please do me the kind favor and hit that like button for me. This simple act helps this channel grow to reach more like-minded folks like yourself. Okay, are we ready? This is the London Scoop saga. All posts pertaining to the London Scoop leading up to the wedding and the day of the wedding are coming from the Tumblr user For Heaven's Sake. What we have on record today begins around March 27, 2018 from London Scoop. And it begins, "Hello again. I have a bit more information. The bits about H come from the gentleman with the phone I spoke of last message. He, I think, is the highest ranking of the group. What he has to say comes through my friend who, as I told you, has more personal access to him. The other information comes from a wife and a fiancé of two others. That was shared directly with me as I actually undertook some studies with the sister of the wife. I didn't know her beyond classes, but enough that I was able to start conversation without it seeming intrusive. Hope I haven't confused you yet. The sister actually has a position at BP, Buckingham Palace. She also goes temporarily to another royal location of business which I won't name to protect the source. Her position does not put her in regular direct contact with any of the family, but it is clear that staff gossip between locations. The biggest thing upsetting staff is the cost-cutting and personnel changes. As for KP Kensington Palace, William's personal secretary has resigned after 10 years. A lot of staff had and are planning to leave. This sister said that senior staff have been quite stern about not discussing personnel changes. They're being told that any changes might affect them would be announced at appropriate time, so it hasn't been denied. He was more stern about not discussing new duties that PA is preparing for, and I'm assuming PA stands for Prince Andrew. So this does hold truth because in March of 2018, William's private secretary Miguel stepped down, and at the same time there was that conflict internally. Let's all not forget, at the same time in March, the Queen's favorite courtier had been asked to resign as conflict had been brewing. Information from the fiancé has to do with how MM is being judged, treated by their social set. They would not refuse to include her nor turn down invitations from her if it included someone from the family. There's no way they'd risk losing association with them. but she is not being invited to participate in any private functions. She has not been personally befriended by them. No one has even seen her about London, so that's not been too troublesome. There, as yet, has been nothing said about wedding invitations being received, but there is down-the-nose criticism about the announced wedding plans. None of the expected high-end vendors for wedding and personal preparation have been engaged. It's as though they are hiring off the radar. Also, not sure if I should include this as it comes from one of the men who heard it from another woman he knows. Zara was asked if she had met MM, and her response was to roll her eyes. Zara has her own big event coming up and is above caring about publicity, but she makes remarks like, "Good God," when something is said about M&H being in the press, I'm told. Now from the top, gent. Apparently, this Marcus, despite whatever job title he has, acts much like one of those concierges who can get anything, make anything happen for customers. Big names don't dismiss him for two reasons: what he can do for them and what he knows about them. They do not, however, see him as a friend or equal. Marcus knows this. This is where MM comes in. She stopped really caring about her acting career several years ago. Her true goal is being on top of the power fame pyramid. She kept acting because of the connections, etc. it offered, but her energies went much more into who she could associate with. And it wasn't other actors. I mentioned before how this gentleman says that H continues with M because it is the socially virtuous thing to do to be seen as colorblind. What started as a hookup became more. She acted well enough for that. By the time things soured, she and Marcus had enough evidence of a relationship between M and H to make it real to the public. Harry dithered. M and Marcus began stealth charitable activities, making visits to places like Grenfell, other low-income and ethnic localities, under the pretense of royal backing. Let me pause for a second. Now, don't you find that interesting that back in March of 2018, this person brings up Grenfell, and what do we have? The Grenfell cookbook. So yeah, do I believe that they were sneaking around on the DL? Absolutely. It reached the point whereby if Harry backed out of the marriage, they would be able to unleash a racial tidal wave of anger at the family. They even have people, some being heads of organizations, willing to speak, aka lie, on M's behalf to say that Harry dumped her on the orders from the Queen. They also benefit from this whichever way it goes. Please understand that this is something the royal family would never be able to overcome, the hatred of the majority of their subjects believing them to be racist, believing them to have destroyed poor, innocent Meghan, who just had the bad luck of loving a white prince. The sad part about it is that Meghan intended to do this all along. So even though there may have been blackmail, allegedly, her intention was to carry out this because of her deal that she had here in America that she thought was going to win America over. So Marcus gets revenge for years of sucking up to and standing alongside, but never being part of the privileged people. If it didn't work out, though, he's really none the worse for it. For Meghan, it is an all-or-nothing move, but one she feels certain she will win. It doesn't matter if people speak out about who she really is. The herd mentality of racism will drown it all out. The horror of it all being that Harry is not racist. I have to disagree. I think both Harry and Meghan are the two racists in the family. Now, all of that said, the one important thing my friend did not think to ask this gentleman is what battle plans the family might have. I hope to be able to tell you something about that within the next few days, but I wanted to get this out now. I apologize for the length, but I've had several days of conversation and wanted to be sure I got it all down. March 28, 2018. Just a quick note before I head out for the morning. In response to a few remarks made about my submissions, I should explain some of the words I used. I tried to summarize a lot of secondhand conversation in as clear as a way as possible, and it would seem I failed. When I said M wanted power/fame, I didn't mean power in terms of I will rule the world. It's more the power that anyone with more wealth or status or fame has over someone with less. Given where she started, lower class commoner, marrying into the royal family gives her quite a bit of that. By threatening to accuse the queen of racism, it appears I didn't convey that correctly at all. The word as told to me was the crown. I said the queen, but I think the thrust was the monarchy in general. As you can see, this was the game plan from day one with Meghan. If this person had been talking about this prior to the wedding even happening, then you knew that Meghan had been scheming all the way back then. Okay, back to the post. I've been trying to not interject my personal opinions here, but have to say that I don't think Meghan has any understanding of royal or aristocratic dynamics at all. She doesn't understand that accusing Charles or William or Harry is actually accusing the Queen in the end. But that is how it was presented to me that they would damage the monarchy with accusations of racism. Not directly, but with other people leaking stories. To give an additional personal opinion, I do believe that she has visited various groups in secret based on the gentleman saying he'd given that information to an individual who could inform the necessary parties, but that those parties already knew. May 5th, 2018, 2 weeks to the wedding. Hello again. I won't waste time and space with an explanation of my online absence and get right to it. I'll start with what I know from the BP contact. She is the source of KP knowledge through her own contacts, so what I say is basically secondhand, but I thoroughly trust. This is her description of the atmosphere at KP over the past month. The tension is incredibly thick. There is very little chit-chat anymore. Everyone seems nervous, feeling like an implosion is coming at any time. PW, aka Prince William, is around surprisingly more than one would expect and remains cordial but appears preoccupied. Not the happy, I've got a new son preoccupied. Rather more like he's trying to keep a lid on things but doesn't quite know where to look. Any communications with CH, meaning Clarence House, now goes through only one person. PH, or has, is rarely seen, and when he is seen, he is abrupt and unapproachable. He looks testy and impatient. MM has been in offices maybe a dozen times and calls often. She also deals with mainly just one individual, but does have passing contact with other staff. I can say without doubt that she has no allies there. She is described as arrogant, condescending, demanding, and has a threatening manner. Not to say that she actually threatens people, just an air about her. Staff are very unhappy as there is really no place for her there in terms of work. No real reason for her presence most of the time. This contact says she and other low-level staff don't really know what she does when she is there. Oh, and that when she has been there, it has been without PH except for a few times prior to events. She has been seen on the grounds, but not noticed as someone who lives there, just coming and going. The atmosphere at BP is almost as tense, being that so many know how strange it is at KP at the moment. They are preparing for a wedding, but not much more than they would for any other large event and less than for major state events. Much of the preps are the same, and at this point, and they're not doing a lot physically yet, just the planning that goes into any event. And yes, there is extremely careful gossip off hours questioning whether or not it will happen. Top to bottom, people are much less communicative than have ever been before. The family and senior staff are aware of the stories about MM and aware that all staff have seen the stories. This turned out to be accurate as it was heavily detailed in the book Courtiers by Valentine Lowe. Everyone also is keenly aware of public opinion. That creates a very uneasy environment. Moving on to the gentleman, the top gent for once is not the best source, although he has made some snide comments to go with his drink about MM's sources of income. And from overhearing some conversation, I know that these men know someone that she has spent time with. It is one of the other gents whom I was able to chat with about the wedding. He does know of some invitations that were sent, but they weren't seen. I guess you could say they are conditional in that if they appear in the press, then that particular invitation is revoked. I said that MM didn't seem the type who wanted privacy, and he explained that she only does now that she's seen how badly she's come off in the public eye. It's also the reason for only one photographer at the church, to control her image. I asked if he knew how many people were going, and he said that those he knew of had no interest in associating with many of the other guests. Some will go out of social obligation. My big question was if he thought it might be called off, and he had an interesting response. He said that people are focusing on the wrong issue. The wedding is not the issue. The issue is all about the who. I must have looked confused because he then said, there are battles and there are wars. It's better to win the war, and England always wins the war. I pushed my luck a bit more and told him he must know more than he's letting on. This is the best response I've heard so far. We all know more than we're letting on, and sooner or later, so will the rest of you. My God, don't worry about the damn bloody wedding. May 7th, 2018. 12 days to go to the wedding. Hi again. My involvement in this has taken such an odd turn. I thought I was simply fishing for the odd gossip amongst the gentlemen's club, but I've actually developed a curious bond with the most unlikely one from the last post. Certainly not outside my employ, and I'm not having state secrets revealed, but he has been sharing more directly without my prompting. Not sure why. Granted, much of what has been said recently is still couched in riddle. I do, however, feel confident in this source since what I was told about the racism and the website did have legs. The press. There is the press that's in MM's pocket. They don't care about the truth. They are making bank by publishing in her favor. Then there is the press that seems to suddenly be pro-wedding. They are not. They are deliberately publishing such outrageous sycophancy to stir up the public. They know that by ramming MM down our throats, by painting her as perfection, that the public will scream the opposite. And it's working. They are causing more disgust towards MM with every complimentary story. So yes, MM puts something out there to negate the questions being asked, i.e. father, preps, etc. And the press soaks it in sugar and lets the public do their job. These are the battles I spoke of. If you'll notice, the most facetious stories have started coming out since the press meeting that was called. Seriously, why would you publish an article calling her the most influential fashionista alongside pictures of her hair falling out and mud-bedraggled clothing? One of many examples. One of the first things I was told that I shared with you was about the racism angle. A number of people didn't feel that was realistic, but it is being dangled in full view now. Doesn't matter how few of the public are actually racist, the bell can't be unrung, and it will forever be a part of the history of this debacle. There is a reason a biracial woman who passes as white was chosen. Question: when do you think PH was told of her ethnicity? Apparently it matters, but I'm not sure why. But this Oprah thing? The royal family is being taunted in full view of the public. I keep being told that the wedding is not the core of the story. I'm still not certain who was meant by the who from my last post, but it ultimately is not MM. Believe it or not, while she appears to be the scheming mastermind of all of this, she is actually just a player who is stupid and arrogant enough to think she's the star. I believe we understand who the person behind her is, but there is others behind him. I have no idea who. Those people will not go down. MM thinks she is more than she is, but the person who has cultivated her friendship over the years will have no problem walking away from her when this is over if need be. All of the side players in this game are just shallow bonuses who are willing to go along for the fame. They haven't a clue. Here's a question I ask my audience. When all is said and done, do you think Marcus Anderson will stick by Meghan's side, or do you think he will drop her like a hot potato when Meghan no longer has money, power, or influence? Or do you think he will stay with her for the rest of her life because possibly they both have dirt on each other? In my opinion, I don't think Meghan will ever go against Marcus because he knows too much about her. However, I can see Marcus ditching her. And I think Marcus, if there are backers and handlers, will be protected over Megan. So, as I understand it, MM was the perfect combination of thirsty, who failed in her career designs but believes she is deserving of stardom, someone soulless enough to cultivate a circle of other thirsty underachievers, simple enough to fall prey to false flattery and participate in this farce. What I don't understand is who or what is the actual target and why. I feel like I'm being drip fed this story because to know the whole thing at once would be unbelievable. In fact, I asked why I was being made to puzzle this out and was told that knowing the end without the beginning would make the whole thing seem fiction. To paraphrase, if anyone publicized the truth of this, everyone would scoff and the truth would disappear forever. Think of that analogy about eating an elephant, one bite at a time. He also said that if one looks at many different sources, you will find many clues. They are coming out in stages all of the time. I then disappointed him by asking about the wedding preps, if they were in fact really happening. He confirmed that they are, but reiterated that they don't matter, which should be obvious from the caliber we've seen thus far. There were other things said, but I don't know how to convey them and don't want to be the cause of false allegations that could get your blog in trouble. So I will hold off until I have better understanding. May 11th, 2018, 8 days till the wedding. Hello, and sorry for the delay. I've been trying to rephrase things in a less confusing way, which has been difficult. I will start by saying straight away that I still have not been told that the wedding will or will not happen. This source is quite adamant about not focusing on that. I guess what is confusing is that this mess seems to have split into two separate things. Please consider that the following is offered as speculation. I ended my original unposted info by saying that everyone is connected. This time I will start by pointing out movers, shakers, politicians, royalty on both sides of the ocean, all connected, and connected by the same two things. I gave some names in my last post. I have several more, but haven't had the time yet to put them all together, but anyone could find their connection. If you recall, I mentioned Misha Nunu not backing away from MM in time to save her marriage, and 2 days later an article came out saying much the same thing. Just confirmation that I was given valid info. I cannot figure who, what is the central player in all of this, but I have an inkling. MM's association with the royal family, however, was not a fairy tale blind date. She served her purpose to her backers over a year ago, and since then, all that has happened with PH has been her own game. The backers don't care. She is no threat to them because she does not know everything. They aren't helping her, but the distraction of this wedding helps them because that's what everyone is focusing on. To me, the theory of an agreement with an end date makes perfect sense since a wedding was never the end plan in the first place. It's just something she is going after now since the initial reason for her being there is done. I was advised to really consider the preparations, the plans for inside the ceremony, all the desperate grabbing at so many things MM is exhibiting lately. I was advised to watch for announcements concerning the schedules of various members of the royal family. I was asked if I was reading all the stories coming out this week and told to keep an eye out for two specific stories. One, an announcement that Sarah Kensington has been consulted about the refurbishing of apartment number 1, and two, the reversal of the outcome of an old trial that will change legal precedent in the U.S. That first one is, I think, either a joke or a clue, not a reality. The second one I initially left out for lack of clarity, but today I'm seeing more connections. I asked about and was told to not be concerned about damage to the monarchy. A response has already been prepared. On a personal note, another remark I first included, then wasn't going to, but changed my mind again. I asked this source why he's telling me these things and was told that since all of his peers already know, he wondered how someone like me would process it. He then apologized for being a snob and went into some philosophical mumbo-jumbo that in the future I may share, if it serves a purpose. May 12, 2018, 7 days till the wedding. Just returned from an interesting lunch with my flatmate and the person in contact with the KP source. KP, BP, and CH are entirely aware of all the press. They know what the game is. Aside from the ever present financial motivation, more stories, more readers, more hits. This is a smackdown of MM. They're going to throw so much at her that the Roman Colosseum looks tame. All they need is to say a source says to justify all the contradictory stories. It's an operation in confusion. The public doesn't know what to believe, therefore, everything to do with MM comes into question. This is in retribution for MM having used them in the beginning, but then refusing to pay her debt. But don't forget that there are legitimate players planting stories in the midst of it all. It's almost out of control at this point with too many players. MM and her team have tried very hard to create an image of the ideal woman, but there are too many people looking to expose her. They're having to now try to realign to get their central message out because public distrust has spread to areas that weren't intended. It truly is a war. Also, don't be deceived by the father. He was a lucky gift. He embodies the perfect picture of sympathy, the old, pathetic, broke guy whose daughter is ashamed of him, sadly trying to be part of her life after giving her everything. They couldn't have cast a better actor. I've been searching for info concerning the two stories I was instructed to look for and found information that makes me uncomfortable. The problem is the initial stories are there, but I can find no follow-up. I also can find only indirect connection to PH, and since that is the goal, all I can say is that I will continue to search. May 15th, 2018, 4 days till the wedding. Okay, so here's my understanding of this situation as it is right now. MM has been given a gracious way out. BP has essentially taken over the operation and has placed everything on hold while they set in motion a postponement of the wedding. This is not to say the wedding won't go ahead. MM still holds the cards for the immediate future, which according to my source does not matter. The wedding, that is. There have been major crisis talks going on since Sunday. I'm told that PH is on the side of postponement but will back up MM going through with it, not because he wants the marriage, but because he is desperate to prevent fallout. Have you noticed that there is not one mention of delaying the wedding in consideration of her father's health? Pay very close attention to what is not being said. Put yourself in her shoes. How would you be handling this? How most people would respond tells you that the father was never invited, that his health problems are convenient, and that everyone in the press knew about the fake pics but were holding off. The royal family are not the only group they answer to. There is a distinct pattern to the yo-yo spins in the press. They are getting angrier because they are being made the scapegoat, which could cause an out-of-control situation to completely implode. They are holding back information they have. I have to add this, though. There is no way the father would be able to make a trip overseas if his cardiac health is as it says it is. All that is BS and just stupid to say. I'm told that MM's role in the backstory was to prove to someone in the royal family that they could plant someone in their innermost circle. It was a warning shot to a member of the royal family that their cooperation in something is required. This is where my sleuthing has taken me to places I don't want to be or quite believe, but without confirmation, it would be libelous for me to name names. I will say that some of you have picked up on what I've found, and I repeat most strongly that everyone is connected. Could this be about this guy and Sleazy E? Kinda seems like it. Okay, put your tinfoil hats on for a second. Let's say Meghan was put into the royal family as a honeypot. And initially, she was just in there to prove a point that she could get into the inner circle of this family. Do we think that this couple would be stupid enough to start planting stories about Andrew in order to win back popularity, figuring that if they shift the negativity and focus onto his situation, then their situation wouldn't be so bad anymore because people are now distracted with this story? Something to keep your eyes out for. One Anon asks why they didn't set Prince H up with someone more to his usual taste. The answer is that it would have served no purpose. A tall, aristocratic blonde wouldn't be able to hold the race or class card. I'm very sorry for the choppy, disorganized writing. I had a lot thrown at me, and I'm trying to get down exactly what I remember being said. There's more that I'm not certain the importance of, but we'll try to put it together later. At the moment, I'm behind the clock being somewhere. To summarize, royal family willing to give MM a respectable out, pushing for a postponement, leading to cancellation in the future. MM digging in her heels, putting out heartbroken daughter press. PH trying to compromise but unwilling to risk the horrible publicity she would unleash on the monarchy. Final word from my source is that he believes the odds are in favor of the wedding happening at this point, but there is a possibility of Her Majesty providing a parting gift, something rarely done to put a stop to everything now and in the future. Personally, I think that if the wedding happens, we will be looking at a very damaging, for MM, clapback from the monarchy. To quote the gent, I would not care to be the person who thinks they outplayed the queen. May 16, 2018, 3 days before the wedding. Can't sleep, lol. I realize that sometimes I think I'm writing what is in my head, but it doesn't actually come out in print. About the postponement, I should have indicated that a postponement equals an eventual cancellation. They can't just outright declare cancellation. That would not be believable. How would it look to completely end their married future just because someone is having a medical procedure? No, if they say postpone now, the cancellation comes easier down the road with less damage to all parties. I don't know what the parting gift would be. The source said it is something not often done. I don't know royal history well enough to guess at that, but I cannot believe it would be a title. I've been thinking about some other things said to me that didn't make sense before, but reading some anons, ideas make more probable. I asked the gent who could do more damage to the other, the monarchy or the Markles. He said, even the Markles have their Bashirs. Remember when I said the royal family was being taunted by the Oprah leak? I now think that's what he meant. I'm going to interject here, and this is only rumor, but I remember people had been whispering that Meghan was demanding like a $500 million to walk away. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do remember people talking about some type of monetary offering being given to her as a gift to walk away, and she refused it. All hearsay, there's no evidence of it. I just wanted to bring that up. May 17th, 2018, 2 days before the wedding. Apologies in advance for another choppy submission. I just deleted a very long post because there is just too much information that it gets too confusing. It's too much to throw at you right now. I did want to address some things, though, and offer some new info. So I'll do this now and work on the rest for later. I told you my source says odds are in favor of wedding. This remains true. In fact, his words were, "Don't be an idiot. A wedding allows them to live and fight another day." Yes, I'm the idiot. This is not to tell you to lose hope. Of course, things can change in the remaining time and negotiations continue. I think, though, that this is where the disconnect happens with info. You all are focused on the wedding, but the source is focused on what is behind the wedding. That makes it a bit difficult for me to convey how things are. I did ask what might be the parting gift and was told something only a crow would turn down. Always seeing something shinier to go after. About my phrase, "and so it begins," that was in reference to palace staff starting to speak out. Please recall that I was able to tell you exactly how the staff were feeling and being treated, about the lack of communication, about MM not interacting with them at all, and how information was being kept private, and it is now confirmed. And so it begins that staff is cracking open the door to show the public there is a problem. They feel their loyalty has been abused. Expect to read more. I told you about PH's demeanor, and it's confirmed. Although he does not desire a marriage with MM, at least as things are now. He was at one time happy with her and motivated to show a progressive monarchy. Now he is a very angry man, angry at literally everyone, which I will explain in another message. Expect to see him suddenly appear relaxed and happy on Saturday. Source's words again, better living through chemistry. Expect to see someone at the ceremony that was not expected to be there, and expect to note the absence of someone whom you would expect to be there. If that second someone does attend the ceremony, it will be for the benefit of another attendee, but you will not see the person at the later gatherings. This someone is the reason for this wedding, and they know it and have trouble hiding their feelings. Expect to see entirely conflicting stories in the press, sometimes from the same sources. This is the result of opposing sides reacting to each other. People with an axe to grind, a political group who just got lucky about the circus and are using it as a platform and simple dollar signs. Again, I ask that you understand that this info comes from sources and I offer it as such. I'm conveying it in terms of the wedding happening because that is what the main source says. Try to remember, though, that even if it does happen, the gent is strongly encouraging me to look behind it. That is where the real problem is. I did see questions from Anons that I'm going to try to answer in another submission. I need to go through the blog, though, to refresh my memory of them. Just too much in my head right now. LOL. Oh, yes. Speculation all. May 18th and 19th, 2018, the day before and the day of the wedding. Late work shift for me and maybe an all-nighter. Was able to gather a little more info. Obviously, you can see that they're bulldozing their way through this wedding. Do not be surprised to see some sort of dramatic interruption during the events. If not during, you will hear about it after, but it will not be true. Just more drama to make MM the center of attention. If you still have doubts concerning who has masterminded today's events, look no further than the guest list for the after party. That alone has insulted some very influential persons, which will come back to haunt PH and MM. Only someone with no concept of appearances, no sensitivity to the class system would do such a thing. If this wedding looks like a couple of unworldly teenage girls planned it using Cinderella weddings for dummies, you're not far off. And that indeed happened, as we just recently found out about Posh and Bex not being invited to the traditional evening party. Please don't see this as Her Majesty having lost to MM. There is something larger being dealt with, which is more important. The wedding is collateral damage, which they can eventually spin in their favor. MM is actually less damaging in their circle than outside of it. It will just take some time and patience. One of your Anons guessed correctly on both of the attendees. PP, meaning Prince Philip, not expected, has been confirmed as attending. If you see PA, expected, he is there only to support F, meaning Fergie. And because Her Majesty would not be pleased with such a notable absence. If you watch the service, keep an eye on him. He is not good at hiding his disdain. There is more than one reason for his disdain. The royal family are not taking MM into the fold to stave off the Republicans, quite the opposite. Also, be careful when suggesting that MM should be dispensed with. She is not important enough for either side to risk something like that. The coming weeks are going to see personnel shuffling at KP. Look for almost a rebuilding, out with the old, in with the new sort of thing, or at least an attempt. It will not stand. They are counting on the public becoming apathetic about MM's character after this excitement dies down. That is when someone is going to drop a bombshell just because they can. Whether or not the monarchy attempts to defend her will depend on when exactly it occurs. Dated May 19th and the 20th of 2018, a day of the wedding and day after the wedding. A few words of encouragement. I recommend you watch the wedding videos and pictures without listening to or reading the commentary spin. It is so easy to have your interpretation of what you think you're seeing twisted. Trust your gut impressions. When you see Her Majesty scowling, but the caption says busting with pride, does that make any sense? Yes, of course, we sometimes take a momentary image out of context, but if you really focused on everything today, you will see something quite opposite of what you're being fed. I read a number of things stated that simply didn't occur. Think about the past few weeks leading to this day. Pro-MM and anti-MM articles side by side. Confusion is a powerful weapon. The media is also expert at making the extraordinary seem ordinary. You accept what would normally shock you simply because it's splashed out in print like it is normal. Was there anything normal about the guest list? So many missing who should have been included in a family event. So many present who have no personal connection with the couple. Question it all. I'm still reading confusion about PH's participation. I don't have personal answers to everything, wish I did. I won't go into a psychological assessment, but watch the wedding again and don't accept someone else's interpretation of expressions and behaviors. Perhaps more on that later. Diana's ring? That would not have been given to her but loaned. It is commonplace to wear loaner jewels for major functions. They are too financially smart to make a gift of that ring that would definitely be taxed by Uncle Sam. Why Diana's? Perhaps Her Majesty was not willing to loan out more than an obscure tiara, lol. So they use what is available to them. Looking back on these London scoop posts, you can see that she was pretty accurate in what had been going on behind the scenes. It's no wonder why Meghan was trying to get those Tumblr blogs to come down. But as they say, the internet is forever. So join me again soon for part 2 of the London Scoop saga. Make sure that you are subscribed and your notification bell is turned on, as you don't want to miss the second part to this. Looking forward to your comments, and on that note, please be safe and I will talk to you soon. Bye!
It was such a fraud.